Welcome to another episode of the Reboot Chronicles, a no-holds-barred forum with global leaders, authors, entrepreneurs, and CEOs about how organizations stay focused on growth and innovation in unprecedented times. I'm your host, Dean Tobias, coming to you live from Reviv's North American headquarters in Chicago, and we would like to thank you for joining us from around the globe today. Welcome Jonathan Siddharth to the Reboot Chronicles. He is the CEO and co-founder of Turing, an AI-powered D-Jobs platform that connects professional remote software engineers with the world's largest corporations. The Silicon Valley company itself is 100% remote with about 600 employees that provide organizations access to about 2 million developers in 150 countries that offer hundreds of capabilities and skill levels on demand. Having raised about $140 million so far anyway, Turing's last round reached unicorn status with a $4 billion valuation. Not too bad. Jonathan, good to see you.
Great to see you, Dean. Thanks for having me. It's great to be on.
Yeah, always good to have you on. You've run a lot of companies. I've done a lot of companies. I'm more the second stage guy. You founded this. You could have done anything. Why did you choose this? Why get into the? I'll just dummy it down for the audience here. The recruiting business. Was that like really top of mind for you when you were back in 2018?
Yeah. Dean, so it all starts with the mission. So our mission at Turing is to use AI to unleash the world's untapped human potential. We feel it's a pretty inspiring mission. And at Turing, we are building the world's first AI-powered tech services company. Imagine an Accenture, but built on a foundation of AI. And it was a combination of a personal fascination that me and my co-founder had, my co-founder Vijay had with AI, the size of the market, and our own story from our first startup. So Turing's my second startup. My co-founder Vijay and I had started another company before this, and there were some lessons learned from that startup that was key in shaping what became Turing. Would that be helpful to go over sort of what the moment of inception was?
I usually ask that as the last question, but let's get right into it. What are the biggest mistakes you learned from your last startup before we get into where you're going? I love that.
That's great, Dean. So my last startup was an AI company that I started when I was at Stanford at grad school. I was specializing in AI. The year was 2007. This was the time when everybody called it machine learning.
Way back. Yeah, exactly. Right.
And it was also that time at Stanford when all the professors were actually teaching and they hadn't yet gone off and started all these wonderful AI companies. So it was amazing to see folks like Andrew Ng, Daphne Koller, Sebastian Thrun, all teaching at Stanford. It was such a wonderful time. And I remember being in a machine learning class where it would usually start at the time with Andrew spending like an entire lecture just on showing people that machine learning was already being used in so many different ways that you might already not be aware of. It was sort of his sell to get students excited about AI. And now what a world we live in where that's no longer needed. So my first startup,
by the way, you were very lucky to have him teaching your class. I teach like AI and machine learning to MBA students, and mine's very high level predictive prescription analytics. But I would actually use some of his material with permission because it's brilliant stuff. So you were down into the weeds. It sounds like.
Yes, I was down in the weeds, and at the time, I thought I wanted to do a PhD, the radioactive spider that wanders Stanford's computer science department bit me and my co-founder, and we started an AI company instead. And Turing, Dean, was really born from one crucial lesson learned in my first startup, which was the power of distributed teams. And I remember the year pretty distinctly. It was 2012 when we were thinking about scaling our engineering team. And it was really hard to look for great engineers in Silicon Valley because you were in this fist fight with these not just one 800-pound gorilla, but like a whole army of 800-pound gorillas. Like
a whole 12-pack. It was awful. I remember. Very hard to recruit.
Very hard to recruit. It's such a limited talent pool, and that's sort of overfished. So we made the strategic decision to look beyond Silicon Valley for Silicon Valley caliber talent. And I was fortunate to work with some wonderful engineers from Poland, from Siberia, from Canada, from India, and this radical notion, it sounded radical at the time, that Silicon Valley caliber engineers can be found outside of Silicon Valley, in other parts of the US, other parts of the world, which was foreign at that time. That was key to making our first company successful. So that company had a successful acquisition. After selling the company, I took some time off and I wanted to recharge, figure out what I wanted to do next. And after like getting the my energy back, it became clear both to me and my co-founder that we wanted to do another company. And at the time, we had two ideas. Like one was an idea to use AI to make sales more efficient. Imagine
Hmm.
Forrest Gong, that type of thing, like an AI that automatically analyzed sales conversations to learn best practices from one salesperson that you can teach other sales leaders to sort of up level. And the other idea was the idea that became Turing. Right? And I remember at the time, like there was this girl that I was dating, and Dean, you must know the Pioneer Club, right? Like the in Woodside.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah. So I was at the Pioneer, and she was asking me what company I was going to start next, and I described both. And she told me, Jonathan, you sounded 10x more excited about company number two, which was basically Turing. And I
Yeah.
didn't even realize it at the time. At that time, I thought both ideas were sort of equal. And the year was 2018, and we were entrepreneurs in residence at Foundation Capital, this venture capital firm that had invested in Uber, Netflix, etc. Ashu Garg, the GP there, was super excited about the Turing vision. So we partnered with Foundation, and at this time it was very contrarian because the world did not believe that companies could be remote first by default, and AI really wasn't as popular as it is now. And I think we
No,
benefited
no.
from those two.
You were dealing with two unknowns, really. Distributed teams is what they used to call it.
Correct.
And then now it's all remote. They love the word remote, which I actually don't like it. It's a bad connotation. Yeah. Yeah. And AI was just in its infancy.
That's right. That's right. And I recall, Dean, like at those times, and today, of course, Turing has raised more than 140 million. Most recently, we've raised at a 4 billion valuation cap, and prior to that, like at a 1.1 billion post. But at that time, I recall investors basically even asking me the question, "Hey, could a company really operate without an office?" Right? And this is like 2018. And at that time, like companies like GitLab,
Yep.
Buffer, Automatic, etc. They were kind of the rebel alliance. And now it's like the world has shifted. I feel like the default now is distributed teams, meet as needed. And of course, for specialized products like there are hardware companies, unfortunately, maybe you have to go 9 to 5, commute every day, work from an office. And it's so exciting.
Don't pick on the hardware companies, maybe retailers, but you know, every company now, every tech company they say they're an AI company, and
Yeah,
the market's saying that, and the VCs love it. I don't subscribe to it completely because I've interviewed some of them, and they're just catching up. They're just it's all the talk at cocktail parties, and they're like, oh, we need a strategy. Companies like yours and others, like, well, it's in our DNA. We started with it,
yeah,
and so two things. One is what is the next generation tech company, and why is AI so important? And then I want to just go into how does it actually make you more competitive? Because there's a lot of companies out there doing this. Finding remote talent is they've all, let's just say, woken up to that when you were already there. So people are coming after you. It sounds like. But yeah, two questions. Let's go with that. Let's go with is every company really going to be an AI company?
yeah. And Dean, that's a fascinating question. And let me share what I hear in conversations with C suite execs like CEOs, CTOs, CIOs of Fortune 500 companies.
Yep.
So, our view is that AI transformation is the new digital transformation. Every company is going to need an AI strategy. Every company, almost every company, has to become an AI company. The degree may vary. Maybe you have to become an 80% AI company, or maybe it's a 30% AI company, but you cannot ignore AI. Every product is fundamentally an AI product. Like if you think of any product, 5 apps that come to your mind, we can sort of dissect it and we can think through where AI either is already being used by the company or will become a big part of that company.
Right.
AI is transforming the way every company operates, from automotive to healthcare to financial services to telecommunications to media. And traditional tech services companies were built in a different era. If you look at Accenture, TCS, Wipro, Cognizant, etc., they relied on manual sourcing and vetting of engineers, like literally sending buses to engineering campuses and interviewing people. They relied on manual matching, and they relied on what I would call manual coding and manual delivery of projects. Right? At Turing, we asked ourselves, what would an AI-powered Accenture look like? And Turing is uh, tech services reimagined from the ground up with AI. So, what does that mean? It means three things.
Yep.
It means automated sourcing of developers. So, Turing has 2 million developers on the platform, growing by 80,000 developers every month. To put that in context, there's like 27 million software developers on the planet, right? And second, we use AI for automatically evaluating software engineers and matching them with opportunities. We use a machine learning algorithm called gradient boosted decision trees, with some of the machine learning features computed by deep learning. And what I'm excited about is in the last 3 months, we've kicked off a new project called Turing GPT to accelerate the productivity of a software engineering team. We want to build the world's fastest software development team. It's like every software engineer, product manager, data scientist having an AI powered exoskeleton. So it's automated sourcing, number two, AI powered vetting and matching, and number three, AI accelerated delivery.
So you want to move from the sourcing, I get the matching and vetting, actually to helping organizations manage their development schedules and make it more efficient because God knows it needs it. A lot of these big companies already have massive, software companies that are right down the street from you that monitor and manage and project management, all that stuff. So you're jumping in and competing with them a little bit. Is that?
That is correct, Dean. Like companies,
It makes sense because it's full cycle. Otherwise, you're just a recruiting firm. I was
right?
kind of making fun of that. I was making fun of that in the introduction of the question. So that makes sense. What kind of challenges are you running into there? Because now you're getting into their sandbox.
That is correct. And
You were in the HR sandbox. Now you're in the core.
that's right. And so companies come to us, usually R&D teams at companies, like the product engineering teams at companies. And we've been fortunate to help companies like Disney, Johnson & Johnson, Rivian, Coinbase, many well-known companies, including some very well-known AI labs. And they come to Turing for three things. The first is staffing, where we deliver vetted talent. The
Yep.
second is services, where we deliver projects. So we take over delivery of the project too. So to build an entire product or a part of a product. And the third is advisory services. So we are helping companies think through their AI strategy, like what should their roadmap be? If you're a bank, how should you be thinking about generative AI? What parts of your offerings could become more efficient, more relevant to your clients? So that's where we help. And in terms of the challenges, I would say the main challenges for that I mean, at every step in a startup, you kind of have to solve challenges as you keep leveling up.
Yep.
I would say, like for us, it's basically like uh, in 2021, there is a certain sort of mindset companies had in terms of hiring and what they were building. Everyone was just focused on growth. I think for us, like what we are seeing is 2022, as Zuckerberg proclaimed for Meta, was like the year of efficiency. I think a lot of companies are going through that. And what we are doing is we are trying to figure out.
Actually, that was 23 for him. 22 is the year of wasting money on 3D worlds. But well, we digress. But yeah. That's a great point. So hundreds of companies, not from Google, Microsoft, Meta on down, have laid off tens of thousands of people. Okay, so they're not all engineers. There was a lot of cutting in peripheral departments, but there are a lot of tech people on the street, so to speak. So that's probably fueling your supply side, right? What about the demand side? Are you seeing in the next few years companies saying, "Hey, I'd rather just do on-demand work through you guys," as you move more into an Accenture, big four kind of space? Or are they actually hiring real full-time people through the platform, or is it more temporary?
Uh, so on the uh, so on the demand side, I think what's happening is people are realizing that a platform like Turing is the most cost efficient way to scale your engineering team. So
Right.
if you were building your engineering team in Silicon Valley versus building it in the talent cloud on top of Turing, you'd probably save about roughly between one third to I would say between roughly around one third, right? So there's one way to think about it. For the same amount of capital, you can be deploying to
Yeah, I get that.
the engineering
Yep.
team, or
And why is that? Is a bit. I mean, can I go in and select by country? Because I know, just being a tech guy like you, I know which countries have what the pay rates are compared to like Washington State or or Silicon Valley. Or is it that your fully loaded costs are just more efficient, or both?
so it's both. I would say the primary lever is uh, we open up the talent pool from the rest of the US, from the rest of the world, and we
Of course.
find wonderful, wonderful developers in places that nobody's heard of, right?
Right.
And I think there's another secular theme, which is the democratization of a computer science education. It used to be 20, 30 years ago that maybe to get a world class computer science education, you had to go to Stanford or Berkeley or MIT or one of those top schools. Now I feel like a lot of those schools have put their curriculum online on MOOCs like Coursera, Udacity, etc. I think a world class computer science education is now more accessible than ever before. And some of the technologies, open source technologies, are also no longer sort of locked into Silicon Valley. Like React developers are worldwide, like Python developers are worldwide. It's not like there are these SAP engineers in the small pocket in this part of the world. I think that's also helped. Open source has
Right.
helped. So we have this amazing global pool of software engineers, and people have also. I mean, it feels so. It was just 10 years ago, I believe, that Mark Andreessen wrote that software is eating the world. It now it's so obvious, right? It's so obvious. We all know that software is eating the world. Every industry is a software industry. Every company is a tech company. And so it's created a lot of interest in computer science. So a lot more people are taking computer science as an engineering degree, particularly in many many parts of the world. So this has created a ton of supply in geographies where there isn't a lot of demand. But both sides benefit. Like for example, if you're a developer who is living 100 miles from Sao Paulo in Brazil, there was no better time today than to be a software engineer because every company in the US in Silicon Valley would love to have you work. So
All you need is broadband. That's for sure. What about the impact of, without getting too geeky here and technical, but low code, no code, for those that don't know, is a way where even someone like me can actually pull something off. So that trend has made it easier for people to learn. Has that impacted the types of engineers you're actually placing, or is that just more, residential kind of coding? Or do you see that coupled with AI where it's, I can't remember the stat of code now that's generated by AI. I think it's in the north of 46% or something. If you look at GitHub, right? What's going on there, and how's it impacting?
yeah, I mean, so I've not seen a ton of demand for low code, no code application development from at least the kind of companies we work with, like product engineering companies. However,
Yeah, you're looking for hardcore. You're looking for hardcore developers.
correct. However, you're making an important point, Dean. I do think AI accelerated development is the new
Hmm.
low code. Like I do feel like with the current state of the art in AI assisted development. We believe junior developers can now be at least one or two levels more productive than they were without AI. I mean, a provocative a prediction for the future is that we might no longer have junior developers. Like you kind of envision a junior developer as this person who's fresh out of school, has to spend a couple of years to sort of figure out how real world projects actually work. But now every software engineer is going to have an AI copilot in their pocket, or more accurately, inside their IDE. That's going to like help them write better code. And it's possible an IC3, an individual contributor level 3, will now operate at the level of an IC4, an IC4 perhaps at the level of an IC5. So
Oh,
I do think AI.
that's like your PT pretending to be your doctor in the in medical terms. Maybe not that strict, but yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there is a little bit of an analog to self-driving cars. I think,
exactly. Yeah. But how do you? That's a tough one to vet because I could put all my credentials up on your site but I'm getting so assisted, So what's his assist level on AI? Well, Dean's is 80% because he's not that good. He's a level 2 programmer. Yeah, how does that? That's going to change your business model a little bit, I think.
yeah, I mean, you're right about that. And we've had to fundamentally rethink how we evaluate software engineers in the era of AI-assisted development. Uh,
Yeah.
the there was this recent study of how a GPT-powered system was able to pass Google software engineering interviews. So that's true.
Yep.
But we also
Exactly. I heard about that one. Yeah. And they are extreme. So is Amazon. They're both extremely intense interviewing process companies.
correct. But it's also true that a GPT powered system is not at the level of replacing the role of a software engineer. So it speaks more to how we vet software engineers. So we
Yeah.
had to think through different ways of evaluating a software engineer's problem solving, critical thinking skills beyond like rote programming. I feel like rote programming,
Totally agree.
more mundane, bookish stuff is going to like become outdated. Like just like uh,
So you putting them through aptitude tests and stuff?
uh,
Because that to me was worth paying for.
yeah, I mean, we're not exactly aptitude tests, but something that mimics more real world. We call it practical software engineering.
Nice.
If these two statements are true, that AI can crack the interview process, AI cannot do the job, then that tells us something about how good our interview process does at
Yes.
um,
Yeah.
simulating what you actually do on the job. So we've tried to make our vetting a little more practical, a little more realistic in terms of what an engineer would encounter. And we are also like evaluating letting the developer use Chat GPT like systems when they write code, but then we would ask them questions about the code that they wrote. So did you really understand what you just wrote, or did you just
Right.
ask for help from this AI black box?
Let's jump into disruption a little bit. I have specific definitions that I that I test people on. Is it really truly business disruption? Means that you're inflicting pain on someone, competitiveness. But before we get to that, real quick, what kind of stats are we talking about? Like how many people have you placed? What do you like when you're in pitching to a customer? What do you say? Hey, we've placed this many engineers.
Yeah. I mean, a few things, Dean. So, firstly, we've more than 900 clients have trusted Turing with their transformation journeys. These
Yeah, I
include,
saw that. Yeah.
these include both Fortune 500 companies as well as high growth startups. And companies use Turing for staffing services and advisory services. And we have a 90% trial success rate, meaning, Dean, if you were for your next company, and Dean, you've built quite a few companies, for your next company,
Yeah.
hoping you build it on top.
I'm coming to you. I'm coming to you. This is too easy. No, but I was just curious, how many placements have you done? Just rough numbers, like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands.
I don't have that number off the top of my head. The we kind of the one number we talk in public is about our revenue growth. Like we are
Yeah.
the fastest growing tech services company of all time. We went from 1 to 100 million in revenues in a little over 3 years.
Right.
So we talk about that, and for our clients, we usually are much more specific. For example, Dean, if you are
Revenue's fine. That's good. Most don't want to talk about that. You're not in the stealth stage anymore. But okay, so I just wanted that as a grounding to give us an idea of the scale, because you got to get to mass scale here, and you are going to. But what? So when you look at disruption, it's like disrupting the recruiting industry. I think you're going to lap some people. Just you're going to pass them by, especially the automated ones. But many of them are, whether it's an Indeed or someone else, they're all playing with tools now. But as you go into hey, I'm going to start messing with the big five, the big six, let's just call them the big 10, actually, consulting services companies that are doing this work for every big vertical, from financial services through medical, where all the big money is around the globe. To me, that's where you're going to, or seems like that's where you want to inflict the biggest pain, and that's where you're going to get your biggest valuation enhancing and all that stuff. So that is just riddled with challenges. What are you expecting there? What's that going to look like? For instance, I always look at good partnership strategies. We're actually bundling with them versus actually trying to kill each other. And not to answer the question, sorry, but so yeah, tell us a little bit about that, because that to me that's a pretty exciting model for you guys.
That's exactly right. And like I said, like we're building the world's first AI powered tech services company, and we're competing with like the Accenture, TCS, Wipro, Infosys of the world. We disrupt them on three dimensions: speed, quality, and efficiency. The speed comes from when you have a pool of 2 million developers to choose from, you can fulfill something faster than even if you're Accenture, you have like billable headcount of like 700,000, and then you have to check what percentage are on the bench, who's really available. It's a much smaller pool. So we disrupt them.
Yeah, and they've got tons of overhead, and it's overpriced, and it's not just Accenture; it's everyone. We've had most of the heads of these companies on, but I get you can run laps around them cost wise. How about quality though? They've got built-in bench ready to go, and you're constantly sourcing.
So the challenge is top engineers don't want to work for an Accenture, TCS, or a Wipro. They're seen as outsourced companies that are focused on cost savings, not really in
Yeah,
building world class products. So at Turing, our mission is uh, to use AI to unleash the world's untapped human potential, but we are in the business of helping great engineers level up in their career growth. Like we have this saying at Turing that if there ever was a love letter for engineering, it would be Turing. We're a company built by engineers to hire and manage and grow engineering careers. So I feel like we have an advantage with attracting Silicon Valley caliber engineers from all over the world, since we care deeply about engineers' success and engineering growth. I
right.
almost think of Turing as kind of analogous to how Nike cared about great athletes and great athletics, like in the same way Turing cares about great engineers and great engineering.
Yeah, it's even better. It's even better than Nike. You're not selling them stuff. You're essentially enabling the gig economy. This is actually the gig economy is probably a 1.0 term. So we need a new term for the next generation of it, 2.0, because you are a platform that kind of makes that frictionless but can also bring it to a scale into the market. As you look ahead, like where do you see yourself in a couple of years, and what do you think is going to be your biggest challenge? Being a growth guy myself, it's always it always sounds good, and then you get halfway into the year, which is whatever or halfway into your cycle of 3 years. Where do you want to be in about 3 years?
I think the biggest challenge is going to be I think of Turing's journey as going through three phases. Phase one was build $1 billion company. We've done that. Phase two for us is get to $1 billion in revenue, right? And
Right.
it's 100 to 1 billion revenue sprint. And at some point, we'll go public. Phase three is, for me, is building an enduring company that can last for decades after that. I grew up admiring companies like Google, Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, etc. That's the kind of company
Yep.
we want to build. Now, in phase two, you kind of notice that the machine that got you from 0 to 100 million is not the same machine that you need for like 100 to a billion in revenues. There are some
Exactly.
parts that need to be optimized, some parts that need to be updated. some parts you kind of can't do things the same way anymore. And the challenge always is like preserving the good from that phase while making the changes, the right systems and processes for that next level of growth. I think of it like phase one was the Black Pearl, the pirate ship. Phase two is the destroyer, right? And so we are in the process of building the destroyer, and it's a lot of editing, right? It's a lot of
Yeah.
what you keep doing, start doing, stop doing, and those are the challenges for me. The thing that I think about is how do we build that foundation for this wonderful business that's we've kind of we've exited the stratosphere, but how do we leave the solar system now? Like to what do we build to get to $1 billion in revenues? So that's what I
Right.
think about. Like I'm always thinking about like the all the things that could possibly go wrong in the next year, in the next 3 years, and how do we mitigate those risks today?
Right. Sounds good, Jonathan. Really appreciate you being on. Great company.
Great, thank you for having me, Dean. And for your listeners, if you're interested in deploying great engineers, either to augment your existing team or to take an entire team from Turing, you can go to turing.com and check us out.
Yeah, links will be there. You've been listening to Jonathan Siddharth, who is the CEO and co-founder of Turing. This is Dean Tobias with the Reboot Chronicles. I want to thank you for joining us today. We're going to see you soon.